Welcome to Rambam in Depth. Today we're going to discuss the Rambam Hilchos Nedarim, Perek Yud Aleph, Halacha Aleph through Daled. Essentially, the Rambam is actually innovating something which is very different from all the other authorities when it comes to the subject of Mufla Samuch Le'ish. Mufla Samuch Le'ish means a minor who's normally exempted from commandments and whose actions don't carry the weight of an adult. But if he's a mufla samuch le'ish, he's a discriminating minor, close to the age of adulthood, then the law is that his vows take effect. And this is what the Rambam says. Katan ben shtei meser shana b'yem echad, uktana bas achas eser shana b'yem echad. A minor who's 12 years old in one day, or a boy and a girl who's 11 years old in one day, shenishbu shenadru bei nidrei iser bei nidrei hegdish beitken eisen b'shaylin eisai. If they made a vow, a shvua or a neder, whether it's a prohibition, whether it's a neder to make something holy, they examine them and they ask them questions. Im yadu l'shem nidrei l'shem hegdisha v'nishbu nidreim kayamin v'hegdesh hegdish. If they know to whom they are vowing and in whose name are they making something holy and in whose name they made this oath, their neder is valid and their hegdish is hegdish. V'im yadu, if they don't know, ein devreim klum. Okay, that's halacha aleph. That's one kind of what is called mufla samuch le'ish. Then in halacha gimel, he says that kaidam hazman hazeh, before you reach that age, even if they know to whom they're giving this vow, making this vow and making something hegdish, it doesn't take effect. Now, after this time, after the time of 13 years old, the Rambam says, 13 in one day for a boy and 12 in one day for a girl, if they made a neder, afar pisha amru, ein ana yedelim shem min nedarnu, l'shem hegdashnu, t'varein kayamin v'hegdeshin hegdesh v'nidreim nedarim, v'afar pisha lehevir shtei sares. The Rambam is saying here another category of mufla samuch le'ish. Someone is 13 years old. In other words, he reaches the age of what we call bar mitzvah. And he made a vow, and he doesn't even know to whom the vow was. He just made the vow. He just said words. Nevertheless, it takes effect. Even if he did not bring shtei saris, he did not develop the physical, biological maturity of shtei saris, of 2 pubic hairs. And this, the Rambam says, this is the age of Nedarim, which is discussed all over. The age is 13. But then he says, he says, this is a unique thing when it comes to a neder, because on one hand, he's not developed biologically into adulthood, into maturity, but nevertheless, their neder takes effect. What is this based on? B'divrei Torah. This is biblical. That someone who is discriminating close to the age of adulthood, his hegdish is hegdish and his neder is a neder. Nevertheless, he says they don't get malchus because they're still considered to be minors before they develop the shtei sares. So what the Rambam here is saying, and this is how everyone understands the Rambam, that there are two kinds of mufla samuch le'ish. There's a mufla samuch le'ish that refers to someone who is a year before the age of bar mitzvah or bas mitzvah. In that case, this is a katan, this is a minor, but nevertheless, because they know what their neder is about, what their hegdish is about, it takes effect. That's a chiddush of the Torah. And then there's a second category, which only the Rambam holds, and also the Bahag earlier, but Rashi and Tosfos and other Rishonim disagree with this. The Rambam says that even if he's 13, and he doesn't even know to whom he's making this neder, nevertheless, the neder takes effect and the hegdish takes effect. Why? because this is the chiddush of the Torah, that he's called a mufla samuch leish. Even though he doesn't even know to whom he's saying the neder, the fact that he's an adult based on his age, that is enough to make his neder valid. And it's biblical, it's min ha-Torah. There's a dispute in the Gemara, if mufla samuch leish is min ha-Torah or midrabanan. The Rambam paskins clearly it's min ha-Torah. The fact that the Rambam divides mufla samuch leish into two categories will be useful in answering a question that commentaries ask on the Rambam. The Rambam in Hilchos Nazirus talks about a case where a father makes a neder for the son to become a nazir. The Torah allows the father to do that as long as the nazir is still a minor. But what about if he's a mufla samuch leish? So the Gemara says that depends on whether we hold it's midat Torah, mufla samuch leish, in which case he's an adult, and therefore the father cannot make a neder of nazir for him. But if you hold it's only midrabanan, then the father can't. That's the Gemara in Masechta Nazir, Daf Chavtes. The Rambam rules in Hilchos Nazirus, Perik Beis Halacha Yud Gimel, like Rabbi, the opinion of Rabbi, that the father could make the son a nazir at the age of mufla samuch leish. The Rambam says the following: Heish madir es bnei katan ben nazir, avol pi shalei bala einas nedarim. Ve'at masa yesh lo hadirai at sheyagdil v'yase ish. He can do it until he becomes an adult. So you see from here that a mufla samuch leish, the father has the power over him. So the Lechem Mishnah asks, the Gemara says that that's only true if you hold it's midrabanan. But if you hold it's min ha-Torah, then the father has no power. And the Rambam does paskin here in Hilchos Nedarim that it's min ha-Torah. That's the question of the Lechem Mishnah. The Keren Eira gives what he calls a difficult answer based on the Rambam that we just learned before, that there are two categories of mufla samuch leish. So he says that which we say mufla samuch leish is min ha-Torah is only when he's 13. He already reached the age of adulthood, but he's still not an adult in other inyanim because he doesn't have the physical maturity. But with regard to Nedarim, it's enough for him to be called an adult. That's min ha-Torah. But if he's a year before adulthood, that's only midrabanan. The Achiezer, Reb Chaim Ezer, disagrees with the Keren Eira. He says it's very difficult, but he divides it in a different way using that Rambam. And he says the following: we have two categories of mufla samuch leish. One is where he's 12 years old, the boy 12 years old, and he knows to whom he's making the neder. That takes effect. Why does that take effect? Is it because he's an adult? No. It's because the Torah gives us a chidush din that even though he's a katan, it's enough for a katan to make a neder, as long as he knows to whom he's making the neder. But he's still a katan. The other category, where he's 13, there it's because the Torah says that with regard to Nedarim, he's considered a gadol. He's considered an adult. So therefore the Achiezer says that, yes, it's true that if you hold it's min ha-Torah, the father has no power to make the son a nazir. That's only true if he's 13 already, because then he's a gadol, he's an adult with regard to Nedarim, and he's no longer in the father's jurisdiction. He's an adult, he's independent. But if it's the other mufla samuch leish, the 12-year-old samuch leish, there he's still a katan. Yes, a katan who has the power of a neder, but he's still a katan. In that case, the halacha is that the father has the power to make his son a nazir. Now, what is the dispute between the Rambam and other Rishonim, Rashi and Tosfos? What does it hinge on? According to Rambam, a 13-year-old who doesn't have the physical changes in his body, the shtei seiros, the simanim, nevertheless, his neder does take effect just because he's 13. That's how the Rambam holds. Rashi and Tosfos disagree. Rashi and Tosfos say, no, it has to, the only time the neder works is if he has shtei seiros. And even mufla samuch leish doesn't mean 12 years old. It means a year before the shtei seiros, which of course raises a question: how does one know to make the neder valid when he's going to develop shtei seiros? So there, Taisva says, we assume, we have a chazaka derava, there's a presumption that at 13, that's when a person develops the shtei cyrus. So we can go a year before that. But we're not going to go into Taisva Shita right now. Just that Taisva holds that 13 without shtei cyrus does not have the effect of a neder. Unless he knows to whom he's giving a neder. It's no different than a 12-year-old who knows. But if he doesn't know to whom the neder is, and he doesn't have shtei cyrus, then that's not called mufla samuch li'ish. Rambam holds it is. What does that hinge on? So Reb Chaim Brisker, cited by the Griz, Reb Belvel Brisker, says that it depends on the way we look at what are the ways that a person becomes a gadol. A boy has to be 13, and he has to have simanim. So the question is, the chakira here is it that you need two things? There are two things that make you into a gadol: the age, 13, and simanim. Or on the other hand, you could say, no, it's only simanim. It's just that when you reach the age of 13, we presume that the simanim are there, but it has nothing to do with age. The Rambam holds that it's both, age and simanim. Age itself is a factor in making a person into a gadol. One could say that it's based on the halacha l'maisha Messinai, that 13 is the age. If it's based on simanim, I don't think Reb Chaim says this part, but I would like to add this hesber. If it's based on simanim exclusively, then what does it have to do? What's the halacha l'maisha Messinai? Halacha l'maisha Messinai is telling you a biological fact that when a person is 13, we assume that he has simanim. Most likely, according to that opinion, it's based on the fact that Shimon and Levi were called Ish, and one of them was at the age of 13. That proves that at 13 you're already called an adult. So there you could say that reason why you're called an adult, because we presume that the person has developed and matured. But if you say it's halacha l'maisha Messinai, it's most likely the halacha l'maisha Messinai is saying that 13 has an effect on creating the status of a gadol together with the simanim. If that's the Rambam Shita, then we can understand how Nedarim of a 13-year-old, even though he doesn't have simanim, the Torah is mechadish, but he has the age. So for Nedarim, age is enough. But if you hold that age has nothing to do with it, age is only an assumption that he already has the simanim, but if he certainly doesn't have the simanim, then why should he be considered, why should his neder be capable of creating a status of gadlus when he doesn't have the simanim? And age itself doesn't mean anything. It's only a siman that he has the simanim. And that is how Reb Chaim explains the dispute between the Rambam and Taisvos.